Yeah.
Madam.
Very warm good afternoon. And we are all set. You can start the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is my share screen coming properly? Can you see my screen, please? And I put it on. Please tell me if you can see it. Can you see my screen?
Murli, there is a problem. Your bandwidth is low, so your screen is not being seen.
No,
Now it's seen. Now we can see you.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I want to first thank all of you for coming in. I think can the YouTube be started? Kilesh, can you confirm?
Yes, sir. It started, sir.
All right. Thank you. I want to invite all of you in this room as well as in the YouTube for a very, very remarkable session. And for this remarkable session, we have two people who have instantly accepted our request to come here, Mr. Mohapatra and Miss Arya. First of all, I would like to place on record a deep, deep gratitude for taking the time out and coming here and also being very positive when we requested you to come. To start off the session, I'm going to invite our co-chair, Mr. Murali Reddy, to give a small welcome address, and then we will start off from there. Over to you, Murali.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, everybody. I welcome all of you, the participants, to the webinar this evening. The subject being transparent taxation, honoring the honest taxpayer. On behalf of FICCI, Telangana State Council, I extend a warm welcome to all the participants in this webinar. Honorable Prime Minister has set out a vision in his address on 13th August 2020 to move towards transparent taxation administration. This is in line with his broad vision of minimum government and maximum governance. He has also given a call to honor the honest taxpayer. This is in alignment with his call to respect the wealth creators. To make the vision of the Prime Minister a reality, it is imperative that all the stakeholders work in unison. Tax administration, trade bodies, and the taxpayer have to collaborate in this noble endeavor as trusting partners. We at FICCI commit ourselves to make the vision of the Prime Minister a reality. Prime Minister has also articulated that tax administration has to be citizen or taxpayer centric. It should be public friendly, and trust should form the basis for the relationship. Prime Minister also expressed the entire development of the country depends on the tax collections. So it's a very, very important subject. It's known to all of us, but it is coming into the focus today. Now, it is my honor to extend a special welcome to our esteemed speakers for this evening. Honorable Srimati Mallika Arya, Chief Commissioner, GST and Customs Hyderabad Zone, and Honorable Shri J.B. Mohapatra, Principal Chief Commissioner, Income Tax, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana State. We are extremely grateful to these chartered accountants, Mr. Maruti Raghuram and Mr. V.S. Sudhir, representing the taxpayers and the system. Finally, a warm welcome to all the participants in this wonderful webinar. Over to Mr. Muralidharan, Chairman. Thank you.
I'm going to spend a few minutes trying to set the context here. As Murali Krishna Reddy said earlier, we're all driven and very, very excited about the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister's articulation of a new way forward. I was lucky to be in a very closed door session in the FICCI National Executive Committee meeting, where one of the very close economist advisor, he was briefing us in 2018 when we asked him the question, if Mr. Modi comes to power the next term, what will he do? And he said, on the top are two important agendas. One is administrative reform, and second is judicial reform. We are very glad that reality is happening right now. We are going to see a huge administrative and judicial reform. I think the Prime Minister's focus in making the tax system people-centric and public-friendly is very important. And at the cornerstone of this is basically to expand the tax base and, more importantly, honoring the honest. But all of us have a choice in the community. Either we become a tax defaulter or we become an honest payer. Historically, there has always been a feeling that the system has always been using the stick policy to encourage people to become honest. I think we're going to see a new era where we're going to see more incentives, more carrot, and then encouraging more and more people to go towards taxpayer. I think that's the philosophy, what we see. But the good news is that we have access to the best technology now. All transactions are tracked, whether it is a real estate transaction or a corporate transaction or an individual transaction. So I think that's a great advantage because it is evidence of whatever you say you are, you have to demonstrate at the individual taxpayer level. But behind that, the belief in people's honesty. And I think we are very, very looking forward to the implementation of this philosophy. I also want to point out that it is not a cakewalk. Any change comes with it challenges on all sides. We have to balance the taxpayer rights with the department employee challenges because the department has been in the business of collecting the taxpayers' money. They have a relationship. Overnight, when you bring about fundamental changes, we as a taxpayer also need to understand that the department employees have to go through change management. We have to give them time. We need to understand their viewpoint, and then together we need to march towards the right direction. The second one I want to talk about is not openly discussed and very often never acknowledged by most of us, both in the business community, that tax compliance is a national duty. It is not a choice. It is something each of us have to believe we have to do. Why? I think there are two important points. One, without tax collection, the government cannot run. As you can see on the screen, a gross tax collections of 24.6 lakhs crores is about 88% of the central government expenditure of 27.9 crores. And 99% of the gross tax revenue depends on tax compliance. But if you look back, what the government does with that money, 27.9 lakh crores of 1920, your defense, home affairs, education, subsidies on food, welfare, everything depends on it. So when there is, without government spend, there is no defense, there's no law and order, and no community welfare. So tax compliance is in our own best interest as a taxpayer. But let's look at some data. Where are we on the compliance issues? As of 30th June, recently published by the GST department, we have 12.3 million GST active payers, of which only 1.7 million are composition taxpayers. As you know, composition is for the lower end of the taxpayers, especially traders, etc. Those numbers looks to be very, very small because for a number of MSMEs, which are estimated at 60 million, which are all medium, micro, small, and medium enterprises, out of 60 million, only 1.7 million are in composition tax. So there is some concern we have on the compliance side. GSTR1 compliance, as per the department reports, we had a very poor compliance right now post-April, but that's understandable because of COVID and the compliance. But even earlier, the compliance was never close to 100%. The challenge is GSTR1 is supposed to be filed at a particular date to disclose your output transaction. And that's one challenge we as a taxpayer have to understand. The GSTR 3B is a more complicated compliance because it talks about the net payment dues to the department. And that compliance is still at 70%, sometimes reaches 88% with a time lag. We'll have to really ask ourselves why our tax compliance is poor for the common man as an enterprise. On the income tax side, the matter is even different, even worse, because the number of people paying taxes is very small. We have only 14.6 million people pay tax out of 57.6 million who filed their return. That means even the people who filed their return is small, Out of this, a small percentage only pay their pay the money. Second is only, as Mr. Co-Chair said, only 2,200 doctors, chartered accountants, professionals, self-employed professionals disclosed an income of less than of over 1 crore. So this is the story now we want to discuss today. People-friendly tax administration cannot happen alone. It must happen along with change in attitude of taxpayers. Tax compliance must become a fundamental duty of each of us. Policy change in tax administration must be co-created. It cannot be created by government alone. It can't be created by taxpayers. We need to work together to create a tax administration which is friendly, but it leads to tax collections. Tax collection must increase and the cost of tax collection must decline. And there we have a joint responsibility. We have no option but to succeed. A good disclosure, this disclosure is a good example. This dialogue, what we are doing today, is a good example of this belief that two groups, the tax administration and taxpayers, are coming together. We have representatives on both sides, and we will look at next 60 to 75 minutes to adopt a very creative approach to in both IT and GST side to figure out some way forward. What we plan to do in FICCI is to convert this into a document and share it for future reference, both at to the CCs of IT and GST, but also to FICCI at national level. What are we going to cover today? We have broken up our entire dialogue process into 6 pillars. One, about honest taxpayer policy. Second, taxpayer charter implementation. Transparent tax administration, litigation, voluntary tax compliance by taxpayers, and role of industry bodies. So each of them pillar we're going to spend some time. So each of these pillars, we have 2 groups. We are going to ask the taxpayer group to present their views and solutions, and this will be followed by views and suggestions by respective chief commissioners. Each speaker, I'm requesting them to be brief and to the point because we have a lot of ground to cover. We are more looking for solutions, more looking for insights. We will stop the dialogue at 5:45. That I will ask Akhilesh to warn me so that we close at 5:45, and we have a concluding remarks of 5 minutes each by Ms. Arya and Mr. Mohapatra, and we will end the session by 6 p.m. With remarks by Mr. Murali Reddy. Ground rules for this session. This is not a tutu mayman session. We are all about listening. We want to listen. Everybody should listen to each other. I want all the audience to listen carefully to both sides. We want to understand and add to each other's viewpoint. I would be very happy if both the groups are supplementing each other's viewpoint. That will be a great addition. We will have the issues and we'll rotate between IT and GST as much as possible. Mr. Raghuram Maruti will speak mostly for IT, and Sudhir is going to speak on GST. Both of them have knowledge of both sides, so I've requested them to speak for the other person also if they require. On the tax administration side, we have the 2 top persons in the state of Telangana and the city of Hyderabad, Ms. Arya and Mr. Mohapatra. Both of them, we have great, deep respect for both of them, and both of them have deep knowledge, and they can also speak on the other subject if they want to. Mr. Arya can speak on IT and vice versa. Format is non-combative. It is not supposed to be putting somebody on a spot. We want to be constructive. And my job as an moderator is to try and step in if it is going out of control. We want to be constructive. I wrote a 2-part column in Telangana today, the last few days, and it's been a huge amount of response I've received. I passed on some of them from the taxpayer expert panel for some of the views. So each of these screens, we have a few questions. We will be going around with total 15 minutes time we have, and 7.5 minutes we have for the taxpayer group. And the questions are related to both IT and GST. So I would request Raghuram to speak primarily on the IT side and Sudhir to speak on GST side. These questions are very clear. I request the speaker, I shared with them already earlier. I request them to kindly look at all these questions put together and give either an individual reply, composite reply. I'm going to leave it to the individual speaker. So I now request Raghu to start off. Very briefly, Raghu, you have about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, so that I have Sudhir for another 3.5 minutes. Over to you, Raghu.
Yeah, hi everyone. From the first honest taxpayer point of view, what I see is what we are starting from a faceless standpoint is a very good initiative by the government of India. Personally, I am very positive about it. This is a new era where all of us are going to enter, which is an untested territory for all of us. So in this process, what I see is that definitely we will see some transition related issues. So my understanding is that the way to go forward in terms of this new faceless assessment process, taxpayer charter is a wonderful thing. The limited point I would like to make it here is that if this has to be a success, in my view, all the stakeholders have to catch hand in hand and travel together.
Raghu, can we hear you?
So, hello.
Hello, Raghu. Can you? I think I lost you a little bit. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah. Now it's better. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So what I was saying is that this faceless assessment, which has been started for both the departments, is, as a professional, I feel it's one of the wonderful things to happen for India.
Yeah,
but
we heard that. We heard that. Can I request you to kindly specifically focus on the questions there on the board, please? Because you got very little time. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. We heard you. First half, we heard you completely.
Okay. So I'm actually not able to see the questions.
You're not able to see the question? I thought I played the question. One sec. I'll play it again. Is it clear now? Can you see it?
No.
No? Okay. Can I request Akhilesh? Can you please? Akhilesh, are you there? I thought I'm sharing my screen.
I'm playing it, sir. I'm playing it.
Yeah, you play it. I'll close down this thing so that you can see it from there. I'm going to stop sharing. Are you able to share? Yeah. I think I had to go first. Go from the beginning. Well, much above. Go forward. Still ahead. No, still ahead. Go one more slide up. Please go up, please. No, you're going down, I think. Can you go up? Further up.
Slide number 10, you can come to.
Yeah. I think this is the one. Just right. Can everybody see this, please?
Yes.
Visible?
Yeah, I'm able to see it now, Mr. Mallika.
Yeah. So kindly, my request is, since the time is short, you can focus on some of the points. I'll be grateful.
I will put all the points together and put whatever is my view.
Please.
I think if we borrow the word from the honest taxpayer from the charter, I think it's a good presumption to start with that, everyone is a honest taxpayer. In my view, who's a honest taxpayer is any person who knows whatever compliance he is doing and regularly pays his taxes. And he does not to be an expert in the interpretational issues and all of that stuff. As long as he knows the basics, he pays his taxes, files his returns. I see such kind of a person as a honest taxpayer. Possibly we can look around when we go around with people. In terms of, what is the benefits for a honest taxpayer? Till now, what I have seen is that, people who don't pay, they enjoy better benefits. I think it's time that people who pay their taxes in time, they should have some kind of reward. So for example, I'm sorry if I'm taking 10 seconds. If you see the Hyderabad municipal corporation, so there's an incentive to pay on time or before time, and a discount is given. So if something like that is being given for honest taxpayer, I think it will be a great idea to do.
Okay. Are you done, Raghu?
Yeah, I am done.
Okay. Now I'm going to invite Sudhir, to
Yeah.
share your thought, please.
Yeah, my thoughts on this is if you look at the provisions of how the GST has been made, especially in terms of the limitation for the raising a demand and also in terms of penalty, there has been some bifurcation or some sort of a definition which has been given in terms of fraud, collusion, misrepresentation, suppression of facts with an intention to evade the payment of duty and the others. So there has been some inbuilt recognition of a type of category which has been there. However, there is also a need to look at that the person may not be a fraud always. So there has to be a looked at. A fundamental difference between an income tax and the GST. GST is an indirect tax. It is something which I had to collect from the customer and remit to the government. Now, because of the unawareness, because of the confusion in the law, if I am not collected, I am not taking anything home. Yeah, that is a penalty that I had to know the law. I should have collected, otherwise I paid from my pocket. But it is not that I am saving anything. Unlike in direct tax, if I am taking a stance that it is not payable, the money is still there with me. But in GST, the customer is gone. So there is a fine tune which the requirement is there in terms of the honest taxpayer. Is this person who has collected the money kept with him
Okay.
in the name of the government, not paid? It's a serious offense. It's a criminal offense. But the person having an interpretational issue, there are two courts taking two different views. One high court says you pay, another high court says no, not required. So that sort of a confusion, if the judiciary are there, the department advance rulings are having contradictory view. What a non-highly educated businessman can do in his business. If he is not at all connected because of the confusion, can I still treat him not to be an honest taxpayer when tax is not paid? So this is the thought process maybe has to be looked at on a case-to-case basis is my view.
Yeah. I request now Ms. Arya to share her thoughts, please.
Okay, as Mr. Sudhir has rightly said about these honest taxpayer, now to define what is an honest taxpayer becomes a big challenge. And as he rightly said that in case of a normal case of non-payment of the tax, we invoke a demand over a period of 3 years. And in case of suppression, collusion, fraud, etc., it is a period of 5 years. So some kind of distinction has been made between a bona fide and a mala fide intent. Now, to say that a taxpayer is not aware of his tax liability, if it's a corporate firm or something, and the director who is in charge or the person who is at the helm of the affairs, you cannot just say that I'm not aware of my tax liability. So there is a lot of hand-holding which is being done to educate, to empower, and also to engage with the small and the medium sector so that they come on board. As you said that the GST framework is all as an income tax which was ushered in a couple of years back, but we are a nascent law and we are still trying to grapple with the challenges which we are facing, even with the GSTN. So the small taxpayers and the medium taxpayers, mostly if their default is there, I won't say that it is broadly mala fide, it's because of ignorance. That's my point of view on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I request Mr. Mohapatra to speak more about this honest tax officials. I think many of us feel very strongly that even the department, even honest tax official sometimes is worried that his noting against the department will be held against him. So I request you also to look at that angle when you reply, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, coming to your question, specific question about the honest, honest tax officials getting reprimanded or punished, etc. I think this is a misconception because the department as a whole has got a very robust system in order to find out, inaction or mala fide action of the officials. And to my mind, I was working in vigilance for a long time, and I know that that there will be no case of any honest officer getting reprimanded or punished for his bona fide action. With regard to the honest taxpayer, I think the charter itself, it clarifies to us at least that honest taxpayer is one who is that the department shall treat every taxpayer as honest unless there is a reason to believe otherwise. Point is, at this point in time, I would say that the honesty to us in income tax is fact-based and some interpretational issues also. If it is a fact-based misrepresentation with full knowledge that what is being done is not in consonance with the terms of the Act or the legislation, and there is a case of an interpretation which the assessee is holding on because of some judicial, judicial support in that case. So there are two different things. With the technology coming in and with all the intelligence and information coming electronically to us, the fact-based dishonesty should be disappearing over a period of time, and more so when we go forward, make it more cashless. So these things will gradually get eliminated. I will not say that it will be fully eliminated, but it will be eliminated. But as a department, I say that we take each taxpayer as honest. And even in the scrutiny cases, which now goes through the faceless scrutiny scheme, in which there will be full anonymity between the assessee and the assessing officer, etc. There is a whole structure which is being built to make the assessee to be regarded as honest as far as we are concerned. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I have one question to Madam. Yes, Ms. Arya, I think the question everybody is talking about being a taxpayer, being reclassified as a customer, is it possible? Is it from the department standpoint, is it possible to treat our taxpayers, especially honest taxpayers, as customers? Is it possible? Is there an attitude change?
I have a different take on this. I would not call them customers, but I would call them stakeholders. We are all participants in this entire gamut of nation building. So we are all stakeholders in building the country. We would not call this our taxpayers as customers. Thank you.
You would say partner, yeah. I understand that. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. So this is specifically on GST, Ms. Arya. Again, some of the questions have come with various points of time. We have grabbed it together and put it here. One is about the GST Annual Audit. I think all of us know that the first annual audit is still underway or going to start because of COVID. It got delayed. How are you going to look at the first year audit? Because as Sudhir also said, judgments are inconsistent. So there is going to be a lot of deviation. Will there be opportunity for the taxpayer to correct himself, do the corrections, or is it going to be penalized and taught a lesson? What is your view on how to go ahead with the first annual GST annual audit?
Firstly, let me correct you. This is going to be the second year. The first year was 2017-18 annual return, which was to be filed by February. But unfortunately, the department CBIC had ushered in the GST audit for the year 1920, right? But we could not put it in place because the annual return had not been filed. So technically, excuse me. Technically, so this becomes the first year of GST audit, and the annual return of 2021 is to be filed by 30th of September. We did do a couple of audits in the last financial year, and though very, very marginal, we didn't go as per the plan which was given by DG audit. But my own assessment and analysis of whatever audits my audit commissioners were able to do was that wherever there was a default, we and the officers were able to prevail upon the assessee, convince him, the taxpayer, and they were willing to pay up. So we've not had so much of litigation vis-a-vis the GST audit as we used to have in times of service tax and central excise. But that is only 1 year. So, and we did a very minuscule audit, and now this is going to be a full-fledged audit once our annual returns for 18 and 19 will get filed. And let us see how we go about it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I now request Sudhir, would you like to add something to this?
One of the thought process from the industry side is that if you look at taking some example from the past, in case of service tax, we had section 80 in the Finance Act, which was there for nearly about 18 years. So where there was a discretionary given to the officer, if a reasonable cause would have been shown for the non-payment, short payment, whatever it is, so there would have been a waiver for penalty. But surprisingly, the GST, even in the initial period also, such waiver is not there except for procedural lapse and all, which is embedded in the law. So now being 17, 18 and 18, 19, people were in the course of understanding the things, and the resistance from the customer to accept that particular rate or not to pay or different type of taxes, the possibility of errors could be high in general experience what we have been seeing as far as the industry is concerned. So maybe some looking at that initial years as not as a where the rectification has happened sumo to later. The same assessee, for 1-2 years there was an error, but after that he has rectified himself for the current year. Maybe something this has to be bifurcated some differently, and has to be looked at as giving him an opportunity, because this fellow has already corrected himself. So that is something may be required at the need of the hour, is my view.
Thank you. I think we should. I agree with Madam. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a decision which has to be taken at the policy level. So why we had that provision in service tax and we did not bring it in GST. So the policy makers would have thought about it. So I don't think I can at the field level make any comment on that. So we have to implement the law as it exists on the ground, right? Thank you.
Thank you. I see the point. Yeah. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, this again is common for both GST and IT, because they're talking about taxpayer charter. Mr. Mohapatra talked about it. Mr. Mohapatra, I will be asking you the first question is on the experience and implementation of taxpayer audit. For example, I don't see any measurements or reports published on how the charter is being implemented. Are we making progress? What are the challenges the department is facing in taxpayer charter implementation, etc. So can you share your thoughts on this on the income tax side? Over to you, sir. Mr. Mohapatra?
Yeah, I agree to your concerns with regard to finding out a metrics for the taxpayer charter implementation. As of now, what we have been doing is to, because our statute is full of references to time barring dates, right? You have to do assessment in such and such time. You have to issue intimation under such time, appeal filing under such time. But with regard to many of the issues, with regard to issuance of refund after an appeal order, or with regard to many some of the issues, we probably need to monitor those kind of issues where the refunds are not going on time, and we can try and develop a kind of factual matrix which can augment to the taxpayers charter, which will make it more meaningful. Because now taxpayer charter is only a policy level document which says in broad lines the contours of the taxpayers duty and the department's duty with regard to the common activities. But with regard to the granular level issues with regard to many things which concern the taxpayers, refund, appeal effect, etc., in our cases. So we need to develop some kind of metrics, although there are advisories and there are clear guidelines also. But I think this has to be enforced on a more holistic level at our end. I agree with you. Yeah.
Wonderful, sir. I think one supplementary question to you, the last point in the same chart. Basically, non-payment and non-disclosure and fraud, are they being distinguished right now? Because I think in one of the taxpayer charter, there should have been bilateralism. What applies to you applies to me. For example, the TDS the default interest rate is something, but the refund interest rate is something else. So should bilateralism or mutual terms being equal, should it not be one of the conditions of taxpayer charter? First, I'll ask you, then I'll ask Raghu to follow it up with that.
No, see, at the end of the day, what happens is that the non-disclosure with an intent to defraud or fraud per se, they are to be handled on a much different at a different footing. There are penalty provisions and prosecution related to that, so those are different things. And the point is how you come to the conclusion there is a non-disclosure with an idea to defraud. So these are to be, these are to be litigated, these are to be understood, dissected, discussed, and then the judgment is delivered. Then there are also judicial decisions on those things. So there is a concealment penalty section called 271(c), which tells you very clearly what is concealment, and if the concealment is proved, then only we penalize. So the point is, taxpayer charter cannot include these micro elements. Taxpayer charters has presumed each one to be honest, each taxpayer to be honest, unless proven otherwise. And unless proven otherwise is the area in which we try to differentiate between what a honest taxpayer should be doing and what a dishonest taxpayer should be doing, and then we correlate both the two and come to a conclusion. So I don't think that these penalty provisions, etc., they are to be part of the taxpayer charter.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't explain properly. Maybe I'll ask the question to Ms. Arya. Ms. Arya, my charter, my question was bilateralism. What applies to you applies to me.
Right.
For example, I gave an interest rate of GST, or for that matter, delayed payment has a different interest rate, your refund has a different interest rate. Every one of them, there's a differentiation between what I do to you and what you do to me. Should that be not part of a taxpayer charter? The department should be treated the same way taxpayer is treated by the department. That's my question. I'm sorry, I didn't explain it properly.
I'll come back
Ms.
to
Arya?
you.
Yeah, I'll come to you, sir. Ms. Arya?
Mr. Mohapatra, would you like to respond to this? In the meanwhile, I'll just collate my own answer. Because
All right.
it's a very difficult question. You want
I know.
same level playing field, since we call it, I call the taxpayers the stakeholders, so you want to be on the same thinking board. So let me just collate my answer and my thoughts.
Please.
So
Okay, I'll request Mr. Mohapatra to speak first. Yeah, Mr. Mohapatra to speak first. Yeah.
So the point is, who are you planning to correlate? The point is, on one side is the government, which on a policy level has said that this is the amount of interest you have to pay for delayed payment, or this is the amount of interest on refund which you are entitled to. So this is on one side. This is decided at a policy level. On the other side is, for example, what you are giving is the interest rate. Across the board, interest rates are different from different banks. And if you look at private lenders or MFIs and all those things, the interest rate will be different. So how to correlate these two? This is like correlating apples and oranges. So to me, we cannot on these micro elements try to say that what the government pays should be equitable to what what is available in the private. I think this is an element which is decided at the policy level, and to me, it will be very difficult to correlate apple and orange.
Thank you, sir. Madam Arya?
Yeah, I would, from your wide experience of having lived with GST now for 3 years, would like to ask the members of the trade and industry, how many of you come across a situation where your CGST refunds have been stuck and there has been a call for the department to pay you interest? I don't think it will be even 0.001%. I can say that with pride. More so in the times of CGST, I would have rattled out those figures in the time and I would have given my wrap-up dialogue to you. But let me tell you, the CBIC is totally clued on this very, very critical area of work. And especially during this COVID time, our officers have been working almost, I would say, even from home and in these very, very difficult, challenging times to ensure that nobody's refund gets stuck and there is any cause for delay of refund beyond 30 days. So when we talk of a level playing field, we would come to that situation when there are unusual delays, but those are not happening because the refund mechanism has become fairly simple. It is again IT driven. There are only of parameters on which you get a refund. Unlike the erstwhile central excise and service laws, there were a plethora of issues on which the SEC or the taxpayer could come to the department for a refund, whether it was a variation in the rate of duty, even on valuation. The department would be examining the documents. We would be going into a huge lot of documentation to see whether he's passed on the tax liability, whether there is a concept of unjust enrichment and all that. As you would be all aware, there are a lot of stalwarts on GST here. You would be aware that the tax payment or refund system is fairly simple and it is very, very easy to administer for our officers down the line, and there are hardly any cases which get stuck. If at all they get stuck, they are because of some IT related issues where we have some difficulty with the taxpayer's account, or there is a GST related issue. Otherwise, all the funds and all are being given in due time. So there are hardly any reason for you to be asking for that 6% interest on delayed refund. And as far as the rate of interest on delayed payment of duty is concerned, as far as said, it's a policy decision. I really cannot comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Raghu, I'm going to start on the next slide. You will be the first speaker on the next slide. We're running out of time. GST, it is okay. We'll talk to Sudhir. Sudhir, can you please comment on this? You already talked about Section 80, right?
I can speak about it.
Yeah. So the last two portions you want to talk about, the last two items, the audit for taxpayer once a year, others for 5 years. Would you have any comment on this, please?
Yeah, the one of the thing which has also been there as far as the frequency of audit is concerned, it is based on the turnover of the particular assessee. So if it is a large company turnover, it gets audited once in a year. But if it is somebody is doing a lower turnover or lower payment of tax, it gets audited maybe once in 3 years or once in a year. So two sides of it. One is that you look at can the concentration be for the people who are actually paying a lesser tax, and the concentration also can be looked at doing a early audit for everybody, so that if any errors is then that could be rectified. So rather than coming after once in 5 years, then there would be a challenge for the assessee also to rectify. So some harmony in that, whether the system could be based on the risk which has been associated, type of industry which has been associated, rather than merely going by the turnover. That was the thought process.
Okay, I understand. I think I'll rephrase it. We are not talking about a policy here, Ms. Arya. The point was
Let me respond to this question. I think there is an assumption, as this was there in the TKC regime of Central Excise and Service Tax, that there used to be a threshold in terms of turnover, wherein the assessees used to be picked up for, or taxpayers used to be picked up for audit. I guess the same scheme has been continued with the GST administration also. But let me tell you, when we pick up units for audit, it's not that everybody gets picked up. Even in the large, medium or small scale sector, we have a full-fledged mechanism in place by the terms of DG audit, as you'll be aware. There is, in fact, I was just asking my officers, we have a tax base of something like 2.13 lakh taxpayers who are paying GST who are centrally registered with us. You'll be surprised to know that on the basis of very, very pragmatic and dynamic risk parameters, a list has been given to us for this year's audit, which is just about, not even, I would say, it is about 2,000 odd taxpayers. So it's not so that it's only that you become eligible to be audited. It is not so that repeatedly every year you will be audited if you are over that particular threshold, or if you are less than that threshold, then it's only that in that particular category, if you meet certain risk parameters, then you will be picked up for it. So the probability that if you are an honest taxpayer, and for example, you've been filing your GSTR 3B returns regularly, there is no mismatch between your GSTR 2A and 3B or your 1 and 3B, the chances that you will be picked up for audit by DG audit on the very, very remote. So to that extent, we are definitely honoring the honest taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is more about faceless assessment. Raghu, I think you can go first, and then trying to explain some of the issues here, what we have collected, and then Mr. Mohapatra can reply. Yeah. Over to you, Raghu. Raghu, can you hear me? Okay. I think Raghu, okay, I'm going to talk about faceless assessments and faceless appeals in IT. What we are trying to say here is that all of us are aware of the benefits of faceless assessment, but what we need to see, what are the challenges in which the department is facing, what the taxpayer is facing, and how can we overcome that? Because we want to make this a success. We are aware broadly about the system. IT department is following it to make sure there's a lot of transparency in this faceless assessment. So my first question to you, sir, is that what are the top 3 challenges the department is facing right now, both at the assessment level as well as at the appeal level, and what can we do about it? Mohapatra.
Yes. What I gather from local sources by talking to people is that one thing is that the kind of the documents which are to be sent through electronically to the assessing officer in the REAC, they are voluminous, and the storage and the storage element is not there, bandwidth is not there, so they cannot pack up the whole lot in their submissions. And the second point, with regard to, there is a clamor for personal one-to-one hearing, physical hearing for complicated cases. And both the issues, the technology issues are being addressed, and we have been told as of yesterday that the bandwidth issues will be taken care of by the department in a very short while. And with regard to that, the physical face-to-face hearing, this has been expressly said no to by the scheme itself, but it provides an opportunity through a video conference in the faceless scheme itself, which says that if the assessee so wishes, he can appear either by himself or through his AR in a video conference. And if he does not have any video conference facility, the department will make sure that he is enabled to make his presentation through a video conference. And at the end of the day, if the assessee or the taxpayer wants that his cognitive response also is captured by the department, the cognitive response also is being captured through the video conference. So the taxpayer should have no worries with regard to making his representation, both in writing and orally also through the video conference to the assessing officer. So the only course now left for scrutiny is the scrutiny through faceless assessment, because there is nothing outside the faceless assessment scheme, and it has to be done there. Unless your case is in the central or in the IT and TP, they are still being done in the way it has been done through physical hearing, because those are search cases, those are complicated cases, those are international taxation or transfer pricing cases, those are being handled as before. But in rest of the cases, these will only be done through the faceless assessment scheme, and the assessee has an opportunity to represent himself through video conference.
What has been the experience so far, sir? Has it been good? What are the department views on the success of this initiative so far? Apart from the complaints or challenges you faced, overall, is the department assessment, is it working well? Is that the assessment?
Yeah, actually, we started off in 12th of sometime in October 2019. So as a scheme, it has been there almost a year, and the kind of disposals and the kind of assessment orders which are coming out of the NEAC, it has never anywhere been told that the assessment order is high pitched, because the other department, we are always being we are being sounded out that we make high pitch assessment in some cases, which goes to raise infructuous demand. So this assessment through the electronic mode, this is cutting out the high pitch assessment, and it is because it is now a team-based assessment. There are many people who are involved in making the assessment. It's a joint assessment where the assessing officer is anonymous. He's part of a team. So that is giving rise to quality, objective, and kind of unbiased kind of orders. This is our experience.
Wonderful, sir. Raghu, are you there? Raghu, there, back?
I'm there. Are you able to hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Now, can you please share taxpayers' experience in faceless assessment and appeal briefly, please? Over to you, Raghu.
Sure. I think I completely agree with the principal CCIT of the income tax. Okay. I think they are saying that they are fixing on the infrastructure side in terms of uploading and all. But from a faceless assessment standpoint, the personal experience I have seen from some of my clients from the taxpayers' point of view is that I don't see it's biased. I don't see it high pitched. In fact, it is very good for both of them. The way it is going through, that you can represent in a very transparent environment. In fact, I will be on the side of the department that some of the cases we closed very quickly in this faceless assessment, with some of them which I am part of that.
Okay. Right. Thank you so much. I think that's a good.
One additional point
thank
I would
you.
like to make. One additional point I would like to make, Murliji here. I think the difference between this faceless assessment and this is that on both sides, on the department side and on the taxpayer side, people have to have very good clarity on what they want to put across. Unless in a face-to-face discussion, you can always engage into a discussion and finally come up with what is the final order.
Okay. Okay. So there is a transparency in the recording of all the data, and the engagement is very recorded, so everybody can play back and see that. I can see that. Very. Thank you. Thank you, Raghu, and a good. Thank you, Mr. Mohapatra. It's very. Very heartening to hear. But only closing statement I want to make is that, is it possible to grant enough Zoom-based calls or video-based calls if anybody asks for? Will it be granted, or there is a structure for deciding which one request you will accept for a video call?
Yeah, the standards and the facility of NASC with the approval of the board. As of now, we are having our own system to have that video conference, right? And if you don't have the video conference, we will ensure that the video conference facilities you're enabled. You are not prevented from appearing to us through the VC because of your inability to have one because of various reasons. So as of now, the Zoom, etc., they are not allowed. But once the standards are set and the facilities are notified, then probably there will be more clarity on this issue.
Thank you, sir. Next slide. Next slide, please. Now, this is about, I'm going to ask Sudhir to just elaborate on this, some of the points, especially the department's, what are the expectations? Yeah.
This has been one of the pain area for the taxpayers, which we frequently hear from. One is that the law has been drafted where the onus to prove that the amount has reached to the department will lay on the person who is taking the credit, who is taking the input tax credit, that is a recipient. However, the irony is that practically this recipient may not have a control over the supplier at all. So because he could be a one-time supplier, or he could the purchase could have been done in hurry. A regular purchaser, he will not expose himself with his GSTR 1 and 3B compliance, because he will get to know my rate, what he is selling. Then there is going to be a negotiation. So there are practically not possible for us, except for proving that the entry has come in 2A. But the recent the view thought process in terms of few audits and things like that is that it is not even sufficient if it is coming under 2A, because the moment somebody is filing his GSTR 1, it comes in your 2A. That is not a proof of payment of tax by your vendor. So you have to go ahead, bring his returns, bring his computation and prove. So this is something which is practically not possible, and the law requires that this has to be paid. So this is something which requires something has to be looked at as to a direction, and there was also a directions which was been given by the council that the person who has not paid the tax, that is a supplier, he has to be approached only when he is not traceable, or the tax is not able to be collected from him. Then in such case, the recipient should be asked to call to pay for. But no such specific instruction is being there, and a lot of confusion on these things is there. So this is one point, and the other point,
Sudhir, I think before I give it to Ms. Arya, the point is about honest taxpayer responsibility is to pay the vendor is GST payment. How does the honest taxpayer responsibility expand so much to include what the other party should do? I think that's a bigger question here. It's not the policy, specific policy. As a principle, can you make them accountable for what the other party does not do? Over to you, Ms. Arya.
I just respond in one line to this. Why do you deal with vendors who are unethical? Point is that the whole intention of this indirect tax administration is that whatever is due to the government should come. If the fellow has collected from you, you should pay to the government coffer. You are entitled to credit or something which he has passed on as time. At the same time, it's an onerous responsibility of the vendor to pay to the company. A lot of dispensation has been done on that. And as far as the law, how it has revolved on the system, I'll ask my colleague, Mr. Kumara Reddy, to a little bit divulge on it. Then you can. Yeah.
Sir, it is a first one. It's basically a policy call, but recently the Common Court made a facility. So, as Madam suggested, basically we expect a tax compliance from the supplier side also. Since he charged money from this guy and then not paid, that means he is not paying service of the GST. So, what we expect is that you buy your services or goods from a person who is compliant, and for that there is a facility I think made available already on GST portal. Type the supplier code number, we know his compliance. So, a proper decision can be taken by the person while procuring the service and goods.
Thank you.
I'll
Yeah,
request the
please.
Principal Commissioner Customs, who is here with us today, Mr. Chandrasekhar, to also respond to this question of yours. In fact, I would after this, I don't know whether it's the right forum, but I'd like to share a very interesting case on this with you.
Yes, madam.
What I would like to say is we are discussing about identifying an honest taxpayer. And Madam has already said we consider all taxpayers as stakeholders. So it is not only our responsibility to identify an honest taxpayer, it is also the responsibility to identify an honest taxpayer. If you are paid the full amount due to a supplier, including the tax amount, then if you are continuously people are dealing with such unscrupulous elements, then the burden will fall on, normally even if you look at income tax, it is the burden which is falling on those people who cannot escape. All other people are escaping. Similarly, here GST was rolled out. This point was discussed at great length, and it should be the supplier, the buyer, because you can understand GST is a consumption-based tax. Means the tax benefit will go to the state where it is finally consumed. So ultimately what happens is if somebody has taken credit and makes payment, if suppose the material is supplied from UP and it has come to Hyderabad. See, the payment is not done at UP, but the credit is taken at Telangana and the tax. Definitely the buyer who has to take full interest while purchasing the goods, and it is like trying to find an equilibrium. What the department is trying to do in terms of trying to identify an honest taxpayer. We similarly expect the trade and industry to identify an honest taxpayer so that you give business to such honest taxpayers, so that you promote honesty across the society and across the business and trade. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam, you like to add something? Yeah.
No, I want to share a very live case with you as we that we should all when we do business, then we should do it with we should deal with our stakeholders in our business should also be, we should, as Mr. Reddy has said, that you know your suppliers. So it's very important to know the kind of people with whom we are doing business. I've had a very peculiar case in Hyderabad, though I've been here for only 6 months, where I'll not like to name the entity, but a huge amount of IGST refund got stuck because the person from whom he had bought a certain supply was suspect. So those kind of situations will also arise for you. So it is very important that you should know who are your suppliers. In case your supplier tomorrow gets into trouble, then you will automatically get into trouble. That is how the entire risk management portal and the profile of the taxpayer is built. You can't say that I have paid the fee, my responsibility ends with it. And in case the supplier has pocketed.
A lot of disturbance. Can you just control, please? Over, madam. Over to you. Are you done? Madam, are you done? Have you finished?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Thank you. I'm going to bring Mr. Mohapatra, and I'm going to put him on a spot a little bit here. Mr. Mohapatra, in the income tax side, the equivalent of this, what madam is saying, when I pay money to a supplier, I have to do TDS, deduct the TDS and pay him. That's my job. But it's not my responsibility to make sure he pays his income tax. Now, how am I responsible for his income tax? I'm supposed to do certain things. My scope of work is I'm supposed to do. So my question is, why can't income tax also? Why is income tax adopted TDS approach rather than the entire supply? Because whatever payment I make includes his profits, right? Is my question clear, sir?
No, it's not clear.
I said when I make a payment to a party,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to make a TDS and pay the money to you, right?
Correct.
That's in my scope of work. If I don't do, I'm punished. But I'm not responsible for him, for our profit he makes in that company. His income tax he should pay you. Is it my responsibility?
No, no. See,
My point, I'm trying to, I don't want to make combative. As I said earlier, the idea was to open up the topic for discussion. Our submission to, as a generic point, I know that it's not our policy. I don't think you can write the policy, I can write the policy. My point is, what is in our control, we can control. What is not in our control in transactions, especially when you do a large number of transactions, it becomes very stressful. So that's my question.
no, see, I just for the life of me can correlate what is happening in GST with the income tax, and that too in TDS. Point is, in TDS does not cover all kinds of payments. TDS covers only as grants in aid by the state governments. This is not, thousands of crores have been given as grants in aid. The state government does not pay because we don't have any provision for that. So what is being captured in TDS is or what is payable under the TDS is the duty of the tax deductor, the TDS deductor, to pay out, right? What is being paid to the tax deductee, it is the tax deductee's liability to declare income on the amounts which is being credited to his account. Or if he's subcontracting to somebody else, then he has to make TDS thereon, right? So the substantive tax provision of a taxpayer to file a return and the substantive liability of a tax deductee to file a return, they are different, but they are interrelated. So I cannot correlate the GST issue on a fraudster supplier to a tax deductee's case. This is my view.
Perfect, sir. Thank you. I think you have elaborated very well. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide. I think litigation and tax appeals. I request now Sudhir to just quickly summarize. We have only a few more slides to go. I think we have another 7-8 minutes before we wind up. Sudhir? Are you there, Sudhir?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah.
One of GST is that the GST tribunal is yet to be. So how is that the tax disputes can be settled quickly is something which we could look upon.
So, madam, anything and the thoughts on it? How can we reduce litigation?
Any comments as to why we don't have an national tribunal and some state tribunals? I think that is on the anvil, but when it will come, we'll all have to see.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next slide.
Can I jump in?
Yeah. Yeah, please.
For the income tax, the appeal.
Previous slide, please. One second. Go to the previous slide, please. Raghu. Yeah, go ahead, Raghu. Go ahead.
Yeah, for the income tax, as of now, it is not faceless. It is physical hearing and all those things, right? But from 25th of September, the appeals by an assessee to the commissioner appeal at the first appeal level, it will be faceless. Just in the similar manner as faceless assessment, there will be faceless appeal at the level of the commissioner appeal in income tax department with effect from 25th September 2020. This is as per the scheme announced.
Okay, thank you.
I have one point here.
Yeah, please go ahead, Raghu. Yeah.
This is more to the income tax department. See, now that we are going faceless, the first phase started in October of 2019. But given that, and as he rightly said, the appeals will go from 25th of September, even that as faceless. But given the assessments going faceless, I'm of the view that there is a possibility that there will be high rise on the litigation because, there's a lot of, risk aversion that can be adopted, pressure of closing on deadlines. And first time all of us are, trying to put everything in writing. I mean, At the cost of repetition, I would say communication would be a big challenge, especially in the faceless communication. So overall, I see the perspective I am seeing is that there is a high possibility on the income tax side that litigations may go up because with this faceless for some time before it settles down in this transition period.
Mr. Mohapatra, what can be done to minimize that challenges of this faceless appeals? Any suggestions, sir?
Right. I will not suggest anything except that I'll give a data.
Yeah.
The data is, this is of June 2020, where 292 were found to be fit cases for addition and the faceless out of a basket of 8,000 cases. So this is the data. Out of 8,000 cases taken up for scrutiny by the faceless all over India, only 290 or 292 cases were found fit for addition. So this is I don't know where your apprehension are coming from, but I am sharing a data with you.
Yeah, I think he talked about more on the appeal side, sir, on the not the faceless assessment side. I think all of us have said it's a very successful. We want to make it happen, but he talked about the appeal side. Am I correct, Raghu? My understanding?
You're absolutely right, sir. Your data is very
interesting.
Appeals.
Yeah. See, appeal will come after addition, right? When there is a disputed case. In the faceless scheme, when the additions are not high-pitched, they are reasonable, and the percentage of additions is pretty low as compared to the regular assessment for information. So in those cases, when the litigation itself is being curtailed through aid of technology and the scheme, etc., then the litigation furthermore also would would also go down gradually. That is my belief. But and the point is, let's give it a chance. When the Supreme Court has gone virtual, the tribunals have gone virtual. So this is about time that we also learn to live with the technology and make the best use of it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. I think this is a point all of us are, I think department has been repeatedly saying, and Mr. Banki Agarwal is here, he has been telling me in various contexts that, our taxpayer is not accountable. How come department only is accountable? Why there's no voluntary tax compliance is not there? Why is it not a fundamental duty? And what can we do to bring a change management, both on the taxpayer side and on the tax administration side? Either tax compliance to be the core, or voluntary tax compliance should be the core of tax administration. So I'm going to first request Raghu to speak a little bit, and then I'll request the Chief Commissioner to speak. Then I'll request Banke, who's raised this point with me first time. I'm going to ask him to speak after both of them. Yeah. Banke, be warned. We're going to be on the list. Over to you, Maruti.
Maybe I would like to first hear from them because this will be more interesting to. Yeah.
I think first I'll request Mr. Mohapatra. I think what attitudinal changes are required at the taxpayer level to make this voluntary tax compliance as the fundamental duty. I think it's an open-ended question. It's not a policy-related question. How can we make that happen?
See, that could be concrete steps at the level of the business federations and the chartered accountants and all the forums in which you are a part, the business people are a part of, right? In the manner in which you agreed to the CSR, right? You said that, okay, we'll spend 2% of the profit before tax on CSR. In a similar manner, before any legislation comes through, so if you can, if we can all try and convince through persuasion at the voluntary level, at the level of the associations, this will be a godsend. And the second point is that when the tax rates have fallen from 95% or 90% to 30% and now 25%, now 15%. Now the point is expecting the tax rates to go down further for people to make compliance. It will be a tall task. It will be a tall task, and the whole fiscal position of the government also will dwindle. As you have said earlier, 27 lakh crore is the annual budget outlay for 102 or 104 departments, right? And they are to be sustained. Your defense is to be sustained, your agriculture to be sustained, industries to be sustained, information technology department to be sustained, Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, President, Secretariat, etc., etc. I have been an FA in 6 or 7 ministries in the Government of India, Joint Secretary in FA. So I know how difficult it is for the ministries to survive when the tax rate falls, right? Or when there is an exemption or a deductions or whatever is allowed in the middle of a year. So the point is voluntary compliance by word of mouth, by persuasion at the level of the association, by business associations, by CA forums, by professionals forum. That will be good. And both the departments we have, both the faceless and all the voluntary compliance, and also by the side also we have some enforcement measures also. So we don't policy intrusive actions. We don't advocate in most of the cases, right? Only in real typical cases that those are taken, and those are very painful exercises. So the point is, if the business cannot pay this kind of low taxes, I think it is a failure on our part, on the part of the society, on your forum and our forum, etc., to convince people to come around and pay the minimal taxes. So it's basically a culture thing, but persuasion should help.
Thank you, sir. I think Banke, you want to say something? Mr. Banke Agarwal was a earlier chief commissioner of GST in Hyderabad. Satyam, Banke, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll just take 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
Hello to my colleagues in the department also, and hello to Mohapatra.
Little bit louder, sir. You have to lean little forward towards the mic.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, better. Now better.
Yeah, I will try to be brief, finish in 2-3 minutes time. This is a very welcome initiative by you, sir. But I see a kind of digression taking place here. You're talking of policy level issues also. Somebody mentioned Section 8D, and you're talking of procedures also. The basic focus here is honest taxpayer, and you very rightly mentioned about level playing field.
Yeah.
Now, I see nobody mentioning the GST law, because I was also part of the drafting committee. It makes a very experiment by way of Section 149, which talks of there being a mechanism to give compliance rating to all the taxpayers. Till I debated chart, the section was not operational. FICCI and other chambers of commerce can start lobbying in Delhi to get that activated. So that will answer your questions. As to the question of definition of honest taxpayer, it is a little sad commentary on our country that we need a definition. An honest person is the person who complies with the law, period. You don't need a definition. Now, I like the fact that you mentioned about level playing field. From my experience, I can tell you that if a person were in coma for the last 20 years and were to wake up, the tax departments are both direct and indirect, and I don't care if it comes across as being immodest, they will not be recognizable. They have modernized and reformed so much. In fact, as I used to say in my internal meetings, we are sick of facilitation. We have done so much of facilitation, but it takes two to clap. You mentioned about being co-creative. Has the industry's compliance increased? And let me tell you, it matters to you, because at least in my tenure, and I'm sure Mallika would agree with me again, more than 50% of the time of the tax officers for whom you are paying, we are your servants, was being spent totally unproductively in simply chasing them for simple compliance. Return file kar do. People will not file the return. One can understand SMEs and all that. Even large companies will not file the return. And the excuse is, sir, the state government so-and-so undertaking, I don't want to name them, some mega projects, they are not paying our dues. So how do we pay the tax and file the return? Some of you, Mr. Surana was there a while back in the RSE, the same lament. So my point is, this is a very good initiative. Please take it forward. Let it not just into a few seminars here and there and some reports you will send to Delhi or whatever. What I would suggest, subject to concurrence of my colleagues in the department and of course industry, kindly set up a small working group, drawing upon all the chambers of commerce and the department. Make your wish list. What are the changes you want in the statute or in the procedures? What is doable at the local level? And in return, I will repeat this. I'm basically a Banyan. I'm proud of it. In return, what are you going to offer to me? Why should my officers have to chase people to file returns? Why should I have to deal with even politicians and big names in industry to indulge in shameful activities like fake invoices. उसमें आपका FICCI क्या करेगा, उसमें आपका FICCI क्या करेगा? Or will you let me be at the mercy of the everybody to deal with that on my own? If you let me spend and waste my energy in dealing with fake invoice racketeers, then I am sorry to say that the Chamber of Commerce also needs to walk at least 1/4 of the way, if not halfway. So draw a wish list, maybe look at an MOU or whatever, maybe let Hyderabad be a laboratory. Hyderabad has been a proud laboratory of so many things during my time and my predecessor's time, I'm sure even now. And let us take it forward. Let us take it beyond simple jargon. I am tempted to talk of the specifics also of Section 80 and payment versus invoice credit in the ITC issue also. But that they are all different topics. They will take their own time. There are answers for that. These are all deliberate provisions in law. But take Section 149 forward. Let us enter into a kind of draft MOU as to what we can do for you and what you can do for us, so that I don't have to waste my time in chasing the crooks. Then only we will make some real progress, which is what the Honorable Prime Minister also wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Bankir. I think we have Dilip Shenoy, who is the Secretary General of FICCI. FICCI, you heard Dilip, what Bankir was saying. Our association must take a more active role.
Yeah. Actually, thank you, Murli. I think I've also put it in the chat. So, earlier in the discussion, you were wondering of how to verify whether a bill, etc., given by a GST supplier is valid or not valid, and what is the status of the payer. The FICCI and IRIS have actually collaborated and created an app called Peridot. You can download it from the App Store. You can download it from the Google Play Store. And if you see your inbox in your WhatsApp, Murli, you will see that my latest thing when I've done a bill from Bharat Hotels, you can either scan, it has a scanning facility, or you enter the GSTN number from the bill. It will tell you whether the person is a registered taxpayer or not, whether he is filing his returns correctly or not, and what is his status. So if each FICCI member and each one of you download and use this app, and if you find someone is not giving a bill, please report it to the authorities. We have actually partnered the Ministry of Finance to get a lot of fraud bills done, especially in certain areas of this thing. So please, I think it is our collective effort to work with the tax authorities and to ensure that we are part of the chain, as Mr. Agrawal said, that, we need to play a proactive role here going forward. So, I've been actually in this session right from the beginning. I normally, as you know, I don't like to speak, but I like to listen to everybody and take inputs. But I thought I'll just share this with you. Thank you also, Chief Commissioner. Thank you all your officials and colleagues for agreeing to do this with FICCI. It is normally very unusual for the Secretary General of FICCI to join from Delhi, but I thought this is a very important step, and it is actually in the benefit of not only industry but every honest taxpayer to make sure that this is a success and we actually popularize this going forward. And thank you, Murli, and all for actually organizing this.
Thank you, Dilip. I think the closing statement, I'm going to close this with this. I want to thank Bankir for speaking from his heart. And there's a closing statement is there for both Chief Commissioner of Income Tax. There were 5 minutes closing ceremony speech from both of them. But Dilip, I think one action item from Bankir was, can FICCI take the leadership of implementing their provision in GST Act to do the classification of taxpayers? Can we proactively put some data together, put some commitments together on all sides? I think that is Bankir's request, and that's the one we should look at it. I'm not going to ask you to reply to it. Now I'm going to over to Mr. Mohapatra for a final concluding remarks, and then Ms. Arya for concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, and it has been a very rewarding experience for me and for our department to be opening out on the various issues which you have raised, including the definition of honest taxpayer. Honest taxpayer is flowing from the charter which the Income Tax Department has issued some time back, and the points which have been made here by the Industry Association and by the GST Chief Commissioner They are very illuminating, and they will take us forward. The Faceless Assessment scheme for income tax is here to stay. We had run the pilot, and now it is across pan-India, and the appeal also will be pan-India, and appeal also in some time. So the point is, it is for us to leverage the technology which is available to us and to make the best use of the resources. And instead of the assessees and the assessees, ARs coming and thronging the Ayakar Bhavans and the GST Bhavan, etc., wasting their precious time. It should be our duty to see to it that they do it from home. They comply with the utmost ease all the requirements of income tax and GST. So the time has come to embrace this new chapter and move forward. And I think with your participation and with your active collaboration, the schemes both at the GST and at income tax will be a resounding success. Thank you.
Ms. Arya, please.
I think whatever needed to be said has already been said, but taking a clue from what Principal CCIT Income Tax and my esteemed predecessor, Mr. Banki Bihari Agarwal, said, I think what we need to do to bring voluntary tax compliance beyond what Sir said, with due regard to his statement about that half the time we are chasing fake tax invoices and fake racketeers and all that. My own experience of 6 months in the zone has been that we did again very, very novel kind of, we took an initiative of engaging, educating and empowering the taxpayers. So in fact, we traveled through the length and breadth of Telangana. I traveled almost 33 districts, and there was a colleague of mine, Mr. Shri, who was my predecessor. And we went and we spoke to the assessees on the ground, and we found that it's not that they don't want to comply with tax. I'm talking of the small and the medium. I'm not talking of the delinquents. I'm not talking of the black sheep. But there was a lack of education, the lack of awareness. So so we did these outreach programs, which we found was a resounding success. We could have pitched this exercise, and we submitted a paper book on this to the CBIC. Unfortunately, this COVID came in, and so everything just kind of got into a stalemate. So what I'm trying to only say is that it cuts both ways. We also have to be transparent in our dealings with you. As I said initially, that we are all stakeholders in building of the nation. At the same time, there has to be a reciprocity also from the other side. As far as the board is concerned, we are so clued up to the SECI grievances that you'll be surprised that recently an initiative has been put in place that even if there are grievances on Twitter, and if he is a state SECI, then also you take action and give a redressal to it. So to that extent, the department is taking 4 steps ahead. So we would expect a similar kind of response from the trade and industry also. And as far as GST, unlike income tax, the new law which is just settling in, there are a lot of challenges with the policy, with the rate structure and other things, and we are all living with it. The challenges are coming. The departmental officers are also learning. So it's a learning phase for everybody. So we have to work together to it, and I'm sure that eventually a little bit of statistics. Hyderabad zone, I found that we were writing a paper for the PM's awards. We were competing the zone as such. Unfortunately, we couldn't finally qualify, but I found that the rate of tax compliance in Hyderabad zone is very, very good as compared to the national average. It's about 70%. So that's a very wonderful statistic. So I think our officers are definitely doing the bit, and the stakeholders, our taxpayers, are also trying to rise to the occasion. Thank you.
Thank you. I think before I give it to Mr. Mallika Reddy to close this session, I must say the most heartwarming conversation I had with all of you in the last few minutes. There's a lot of positivity, and Banke, thanks for opening up this entire conversation to higher level. Thank you very much. Over to Mallika Reddy. Kindly, your concluding remarks, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Muralidharan. It has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, very frank, candid, and open. If I have to sum up, this is the way forward. Like both the commissioners have rightly expressed, we are learning in the process, And if we, both the trade bodies, taxpayers bodies, and the officers, department come together more often, exchange ideas, learn from each other, learn each other's concerns, and over a period of time, we will be a transparent system. Transparent systems don't happen overnight. We can't blame the department for certain things. And at the same time, it's so heartwarming and wonderful to hear from the senior officers of the department to say that the taxpayer is presumed to be honest till proved otherwise. That's a wonderful approach to take. And I think it's being implemented in all its sincerity. And that is the very reason these two wonderful senior officers have so willingly come and participated in our forum. I look forward to this type of interaction all over the country so that we understand each other. Otherwise, among the taxpayer, there is a terror when they think of a tax officer. No, tax officers are quite kind. They understand, reasonable. Only that can happen when we trade bodies disseminate that kind of information in our trade bodies and educate the taxpayers. And at the same time, within the department also, senior officers take upon themselves not only target fixing, but also educating the middle and junior level officers to be kind and to be understanding, to be reasonable, without compromising on the compliance. And as Mr. Mohapatra nicely said, we have come down from 90% tax to the current level. Process is always, happening in a positive way. One more thing I would like to, as part of summing up, to say is that we, as a nation, have a need to increase our tax revenues. There is no question about it. More and more people have to pay. There are a lot of people who are, that's where the concept of the duty comes in. It is not correct to say only 1.4 lakh or 1.5 crore people only have to pay tax in terms of income tax. I'm not talking about GST. GST everybody pays. So there is a need to widen the base. In this process, we in the trade bodies have a stupendous role to, educate our people. Don't be terrorized. If you comply, nobody's going to, finish you off. Start coming and start paying taxes. That's a wonderful takeaway from this. And also, when Madam Mallika Arya said, we are learning. That's a wonderful statement. They are learning, we are learning. If that approach is there, all of us together can take our tax administration towards the transparency which Prime Minister wants all of us to achieve. And then one more thing Mr. Mohapatra has said is Faceless is working out well. Already pilots have been done. It is in the interest of everybody, I honestly feel, that faceless assessments become a success for the benefit of the department, for the benefit of tax base, for the benefit of the taxpayers. It is going to have teething problems, but if we all work together with patience, with perseverance, and with commitment to that concept, we can achieve. If there is no commitment, it can result in operation is successful, patient is dead. That's not the intention of anybody. So in conclusion, I can only say there is need for more collaboration, more openness, more discussion, more appreciation of each other's problems, each other's perspectives, so that as a nation, we become a smooth, transparent and tax administration, and also people don't have to fear the tax administrators. More and more people can pay. This very concept of recognizing the honest taxpayer, though it may take twists and turns over a period of time, it's a wonderful concept. If the senior officers embrace this concept, over a period of time, compliance can increase. In fact, if you would permit me, I would like to throw an idea which can be picked up. For example, in the airlines business, When people travel more and more, they get what is known as miles, reward points. Can the tax department also borrow this idea and initiate a process by which, compliance, various compliances, you can have a, 20, 10, whatever points. When the taxpayer complies with all these things, he or she gets certain reward points. Over a period of time, if that person crosses X amount of points, they are graded as A grade compliant, and then confer on them whatever privileges which are practical, implementable. It can be a wonderful idea. Instead of saying, if you comply with total law, all the time you are honest. That is difficult. If you have a gradation of giving points, people would like to aspire to that level, and I would like to wear a badge of honor on my lapel that I am a grade compliant taxpayer, and that can bring in huge results. One more point I would like to suggest is people who pay high taxes, I don't think we have to be diffident about recognizing him, because end of the day, it is the high taxpayer who is contributing to the development of the country. Can they be recognized? If they are recognized and acknowledged by the department and the government, more and more people may want to be in that, elite circle, if I may be permitted to use that word, or a special circle, so it can be done. With these remarks, I would like to thank the senior officers, Honorable Srimati Mallika Arya, Chief Commissioner, Honorable Shri J.B. Mohapatra, for readily agreeing to our request and come here and spend so much time with us and understanding our issues and also expressing their views. And in such a way, there is so much of meeting ground between both of us. I also thank the other senior officers who were assisting the chief commissioners. I thank Raghu, and I thank Sudhir, and I thank our chairman Muralidharan, and I thank our Secretary General, Mr. Shinoy, and I thank Mr. Agarwal for taking time and coming, and I thank everybody for making this webinar such a success. I really hope this will be a harbinger for things to come. I really hope many webinars like this will happen across the country, so that more and more taxes are collected for the government and more people join this brigade of taxpayers, honest taxpayers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Murli Garu. I want to again close this discussion. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.